Okay, I'm here. Oh my gosh. All right. So I am actually live on Facebook. Um, and I'm talking about parent courage. And I am really, what I've set up is for you to have comments. So if anybody's on right now, and you'll see a link that says, gives you permission to have your face, your email, your name show up in the comments. Just say hi, just to test it and see if it's working. Anyway, I'm just going to move forward because I can't keep, I'm going to have to test this over and over again. But I wanted just to talk about parent courage. I have, for the last 3 weeks, been really focusing on these sort of core aspects of being a human being, of being but also of being a parent, and that is vulnerability, right, and courage. And today, parent courage and vulnerability are literally the same thing, but yet they have completely different definitions. And so, parent courage is something that's really coming up because I see a lot of questions on these in these Facebook groups that I'm not really in or on or follow, but I'm a member, so I see the questions coming up, and they're always about, not always, but they're often about fear, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no sense of what's the right thing to do at this moment with my child, or my child's in trouble, or I'm in trouble, and it's just this incredible overwhelm, right? And this feeling, I think, that is common amongst so many parents, and that is, there's just a lot of pressure. There's a lot of responsibility to be raising human beings, and if I do it wrong, then I am creating a miserable human being who has to sort of navigate this very complex world, and that's going to be my fault, right? Because I didn't do it right, and so there's something wrong with me as a parent. And this way of sort of assaulting yourself, right? Of criticizing yourself, of saying that you're not good enough, and that you're not doing a good job, and your child's at risk because of you, is pretty common. It's pretty common. I know I have felt that often, and as a matter of fact, I just recently I had to have what I felt was one of those pull the card. Every parent gets a few cards when they really intervene, and they really sort of speak from their heart and say something. It's like a little emotional intervention, and I had to pull one last week with my daughter, who is transitioning from one job to another job, and was making these choices of giving away so much of her value and her time and her energy to her employers, and I was very concerned about her taking care of herself in that transition. And as a result of that, right, I got all like worked up saying, as a parent, what is my job as a parent? She's 25 years old. This is her life. She's got this thing going herself. And I totally preach, like, let your kids figure this out on their own. But every once in a while, you have to intervene. And the intervention is that emotional intervention. When you step up and you say something, you're putting yourself at risk, right? Because your child is, doesn't really want to hear you speak what you think is the truth, and it might not be their truth. And you're making yourself vulnerable, and you could be wrong. And there's just so many reasons why parents don't step up and speak from the heart, which is the definition of courage. Courage, the Latin word meaning for core, is heart. So to speak from the heart, it's one thing for me as a parent to say, I think you're doing that and that's wrong, right? Another thing is to really be in touch with my own sort of understanding of what she's actually going through that I went through. Um, and I didn't want her to go through that, and I wanted her to not go through that, right? At because the exhaustion, right, and the giving away of your values, sort of throwing your pearls to swine, um, and to sort of step back and say, okay, I need this for myself. That's something I know really well, and because I've lived it, and so I felt very emotionally connected to this message, this thing I wanted to give to my daughter. But I had to decide whether it was more about me or more about her. And was I taking care of myself more than I was taking care of her? And and so it got confusing. And I had to take a moment to really think about it. And so basically, the courage to speak up and to tell the truth as you see it could cause conflict, could cause division, could cause, every intervention brings new information into the situation and then redirects the relationship. It just does every single time you say something that is what you think is very real and truthful. You think your child's not listening, but your child is taking something in, and it might not be what you want them to hear. So speaking from the heart can be a quandary. It could be is complicated, right? You don't want your child to live their life in reaction to your reactivity, right? But you also have to have the courage to speak up and tell the truth when you really feel like this is my time, this is my moment. And so I see it as having sort of these cards. You have these cards in the back pocket, and you can't use them very often, right? They're like the I can enter this world card, and I can tell the truth as I see it card, and it only works if you do it, I don't know, once every few months or once every 6 months or once a year, depending on how old they are, right? Where you really step into their life and say, okay, I have something to say to you. And this is what I believe here. It is a kind of an emotional intervention. And and that takes a huge amount of courage, as I said, because, the reactivity, if you're coming from a place of fear and reactivity, then they're going to react to you, and then the message gets lost, and you sort of end up going down a different direction. And so courage is a really important part of the parent experience. This is one specific area of courage that I'm talking about, of being able to tell the truth to your child and pull that card out when you need it. And like my kids are 25 to 32, so I don't pull that card out very often. Very rarely I pull it out, but when it comes out, it comes out. And I am like, I can't sleep the night before, and I'm sort of like, buzzing with concern and also responsibility for communicating something to my child that I feel is my duty to communicate. But if I don't have a good relationship with my child, and I'm communicating something to my child that I feel is important, that they don't feel is important, it's all going to be a wash. So courage is pacing, it's timing, it's stepping up and making yourself vulnerable and telling the truth in that moment with love and concern, and being able to sort of step back and say, okay, that's what I said and did, and take responsibility for what you've said, right? It is the true heart-to-heart conversation that is often so scary, but you're actually holding it all. Like this is your stuff coming out to your child. And I'm not talking about your child coming home at midnight, 2 hours after their curfew, and you're yelling and screaming. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm actually talking about very controlled, thought out intervention, emotional intervention, where you're really speaking from the heart. And that is really a parent responsibility that you have, um, you don't actually have as much of it as you think. Because if you're always telling the truth, always speaking from the heart, your children stop listening to you. So to continue this story, because I thought it was pretty interesting, and I just wanted to share that. And if nobody gets on, I'm not even sure if you guys even can get on. But I'm going to only do this talk for about 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to get off, and I'll probably get back on again today a couple times until I really nail this new platform. So what ended up happening was my daughter's name is Freeland, and she's 25, and she's transitioning from one job to another job. Sort of like the last job that she's leaving this week. The job that she's leaving this week is a job that sort of the tail end of her sort of adolescence. So she's 25, right? And so now she's going into an adult job where she has a lot more responsibility. And so, as I said, she wanted to have no time between jobs, and the jobs are in 2 different states. So I was very concerned because she works really hard, and she's overachieving, and she doesn't really take care of herself very well. And I was really concerned that she was really going to run herself down. So I felt that I needed to say something. So I did, and I spoke to her I woke up that morning, and this is last week. Hi. Oh, yeah. So I woke up that morning after thinking about it all night, and I called her. Actually, that's not true. I messaged her and I said, can you call me? And of course she calls me right back. It's like 9:30 Saturday morning. And she goes, what's up? What's wrong? Right? She's concerned. I said, nothing, but I have something I need to share with you. Is this a good time? And she said, yeah, go ahead. So I talked for maybe 15 minutes. I mean, I really laid it out, and I could feel this energy building in me, right? I could feel it, and I was like, I don't want to make this too much about me, but I could feel it getting more and more intense inside of me. Like, really wanted to save her. I need you to hear this. I need you to know this. It's really important. As women, as females, we get stuck in this caretaking role, and you have to think about yourself first, and what is it you need to transition from job to job, and not actually transition from job to job, giving what you think your employers need from you. This is about parenting. So I did it, right? Hung up, move on. Later, I took a long, long walk. I'm in New York, so I took a long, long walk over the Williamsburg Bridge, and I was really thinking very deeply about, was that the right intervention? Was that the right thing to do? And then why was I so worked up about this? And what's really going on here? And these are the questions. So it takes courage to speak honestly to someone you love, no matter how old your child is, right? Age appropriate truth. But it also takes a certain amount of courage and heart to make that U-turn and talk to yourself, right? And say, what is really going on here? Now, should I have done that before probably calling her? Yeah, but I didn't, right? I called her in the morning and spoke with a lot of feeling, and she listened, and we had a conversation, and then she got off the phone, and then I took this long walk, and then I started doing what I should have done before, which was sort of checking with myself, what's really going on here. So it takes courage to tell the truth, or to try to investigate the truth, or try to understand what you're feeling and where it's coming from. But here's the thing. My real takeaway about courage, about parent courage, is this. Is that you can do nothing wrong. You really can do nothing wrong if it's coming from here. And even if I overstepped my perceived boundaries and what maybe her boundaries a little bit in that conversation, maybe a lot of it, I was coming from here, right? I was coming from my heart and from a place of true concern. And I feel like there's nobody else except me and her father who can actually tell the truth as we see it, because we've known her from the moment she was born to today. And I don't do that very often. And I stepped up and I said what I felt was the truth. And so what I ended up saying to myself afterwards was, good work, good work. Instead of that, when you tell the truth to somebody you love, and maybe you're talking about them, but you're also talking about yourself, you say after you think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. But instead I said, good work. Because this conversation led to 3 or 4 more conversations that helped her make a better decision about self-care. And it helped me understand my own triggers around self-care, right? And what it is that I wished my parents had done for me, right? I wished my parents had sort of called up and said, can I talk to you about something? I'm concerned about something about you, because that tells me, or that would have told me then, that they were paying attention and they were willing to put themselves at risk on some level and put themselves out of their comfort zone to try to communicate something to me. And they were using that card that they had. And my parents didn't do that, because that was who they were. So it's not that I didn't think they loved me or didn't love me. It was just that they weren't, that's just not the way they operated. So courage. What is courage? What is parent courage? Parent courage, to me, parent courage could be different for you, is telling the truth to your child, but also telling the truth to yourself, and then being very, very loving and compassionate about that truth, because it's vulnerable. It's very vulnerable to be truthful, or even trying to, when you're telling the truth or what you think of the truth, you're entering this room in your castle that you might not be very familiar with, but there's something in there that's really right that you need to know and you need to express, but you can't quite get there, right? So you're playing with lots of words, your ideas, and you're trying to get there. And it's the effort of telling the truth that matters. It's the effort of trying to connect that matters. It's the effort of fumbling and, I'm not actually sure what I'm trying to say, but do you understand what I'm trying to say? That kind of thing. And does that make sense? Does that make sense? Anybody else? What? Hi, Amanda. So glad you're here. So how is this connected to parenting? Well, obviously it is connected to parenting in so many ways, but how is it connected to parenting? Because I know some people are on who have younger children. How do you tell a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, how do you communicate truth to your 4 and 6-year-old, right? How do you parent from courage, right, from heart, when your child is really little, right? When your child is looking up to you to be strong, to be resilient, right? It's the same thing. It doesn't matter if your child's 4 or 25. It really doesn't. It's really about the willingness to be vulnerable, right? So if you have a 4-year-old who you want to, and you're going to have a lot more interventions with a 4-year-old than you're going to have with a 25-year-old. You have many, many, many more cards with a little one than you do have with the older one. But with the little guys, you actually could have these kind of interventions, these kind of emotional interventions, multiple times a month. For example, if your child is temper tantruming a lot, and it is and you're very concerned about it. Okay, that's just it. Like, your daughter is having a lot of, or son is having a lot of meltdowns, and you're very concerned about it, right? And so you're trying to navigate it and you're trying to manage it, and it's not, you're not really getting anywhere. What might be missing? What might be missing in that 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 effort for you as a parent to sort of manage the situation? What might be missing is you, right? What's going on inside of you, and how that is triggering you, how that behavior is triggering you, and then how do you. So once you understand that that behavior is triggering you, and sort of getting to know why it's triggering you, right? And then being able to step up with that card and say, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. You actually have this incredible opportunity to express your side of it, right? Like what I said to my daughter in the first conversation was, I wasn't really talking about myself. I was mostly talking about, so I was concerned about the choices she was making. So I don't think that was like the ideal conversation, but we got through it, took my walk, then we had another conversation. I called her on the other side of the bridge. So morning conversation, mostly talking about her, old school. Got over the bridge after I did that conversation with myself, and then I called her back and said, okay, here's what's going on with me. So I sort of did it backwards, and then I was able to express what was going on with me. And that is when it shifted, right? It became something else, because it wasn't just about her, because we don't understand. When someone gets concerned about us, we think we're doing something wrong. But when they get concerned about us because they've experienced something similar, or they are afraid that they're not good enough, or they're afraid that they're missing something as a parent, how you express that in an age-appropriate way is super important to your child, because then they're not carrying the whole weight of this thing that's not working, right? Because my daughter knew that something is not working. She knew, and I could have pretended it was all fine, because I didn't want to get into it with her, because I think she's 25, she's going to make her own decisions. But I felt compelled to intervene, but I didn't do it. I didn't take care of myself first. Okay. So with a 4-year-old, or a 6-year-old, or an 8-year-old, courage starts with taking care of yourself first, having heart for your feeling, having a conversation with yourself, take a walk. Why am I feeling this way? What's really going on here, right? And then setting up a conversation with your child that includes you, right? That includes you. I was going to say something else about my aha moment about myself, when I shared with my daughter. And it was very simple, really, which I didn't actually get until after I got over the other side of the bridge. And that is that I felt, this is kind of deep, actually. It was sort of like an aha moment for me. I felt bad because I felt guilty, is what it was. I felt guilty because I had let her down, because she's so much like me. And she is an overachiever. She works really hard. She's a good kid. But she gives away a lot, and doesn't, she's always taking care of everybody else and not herself. I'm not saying I'm super like that, but there is this workaholicness in my family, in my mother and father and me. That she's definitely picked up on, being the youngest of 4. And now I flipped it, and I said, no, it's really about self-care and taking care of herself. But she grew up with that. I went back and got my BA when she was 3. I got 2 masters afterwards, and I started my business. All she's ever seen is me working. And so I realized that what was really going on, which is what I told her on the other side of the bridge, was that I feel like I have I'm disappointed in myself because I feel like um, I have role modeled this, right? That you don't need to, that you don't take care of yourself first, you take care of others first. And you have to work really hard and ask for outside validation. I feel like I've role modeled that for you, and I want you to know that I'm right there now trying to turn that around at 59, and I just wanted to red flag that what I see is maybe going on right now with you. So it's see the vulnerability. It was like completely different. I was able to bring myself into the conversation. I was able to show my vulnerability, and I was able to take away the attention off the spotlight off of her, and then make the spotlight more about me, and that's when it shifted. So this is more about me because I don't have any questions, and I see people are watching, which I'm really glad, and I'm just trying to get this the live set up properly. So that's why I'm doing it on Facebook today. And I will probably do more on Facebook and this is why. I have an online community called Parenting You First. That's not on Facebook. It's on this platform called Mighty Networks. And what you get is a live conversation with me, a live Q&A conversation with me every week that is about an hour long. And I get to know you, you get to know me, and then you also get to know each other in discussion. You can be messaging back and forth with each other. There's a course in there called the No Conflict Family Meeting course, which is super important to start to implement, no matter how old your children are. And I support that learning and that implementation in the course, in the group. So I have paused the membership right now. You can still get in through, if you could type in parentingyouFirst.com, but I've slowed the greater membership opportunity down because I am tweaking I'm still figuring this out, and I thought I had it all figured out, but it's not quite right. So that's me, and that's what Parent Courage is. That's my sort of my meditation on parent courage, using a personal story of my own to illustrate that parent courage is really heart work. It's the ability to show up and be vulnerable and take the risk of showing up for your child, but also showing up for yourself. And how you do that can be very messy, but in the end, your child is grateful to you for making the effort. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me before I get off? I think 30 minutes of me talking is enough. So the chat's working, which is very cool. And 28 minutes of talking. And I'll post this. So, okay. Goodbye. If you have any questions, you can message me in the Facebook group, or you can come on into the Parenting You First community and have two free weeks for free. Okay, bye.